parallel structures. I want to talk a little bit about that this evening. Is what, Boxing Day, December 26th, 2025. I guess we're out of the holiday festivities now and people are trying to get back to normal. I'm not one for the holidays. It has never been something that resonated with me. But as I um, was having dinner this afternoon and, finished and I started to check my social media feed, I saw there were two videos that I saw that were disturbing. One was a 60 minutes episode that apparently was um, aired and then taken down because the people that the US is deporting, they are being sent to these concentration camps in El Salvador.
You may recall earlier this year when the Trump administration deported hundreds of Venezuelan men to El Salvador, a country most had no connection to. The White House claimed the men were terrorists, part of a violent gang, and invoked a centuries-old wartime power, saying it allowed them to deport some men immediately without due process, an unusual strategy that sparked an ongoing legal battle. Tonight, you'll hear from some of those men. They describe torture, sexual and physical abuse inside CICOT, one of El Salvador's harshest prisons, where they say they endured 4 months of hell.
Tortured and held in inhumane conditions. So that was disturbing. I'll post the video as soon as I get a chance. And then I saw another video of a young man. He can't be more than 22 years old. I would be surprised if he's that old. He's probably younger, maybe about 19 or 20. And he's saying he's ready to leave. Like, I'm done. Like, this life is trash. I'm not in a suicidal way, as in, I want to kill myself, but in the sense that life is just, it's not doing what it's supposed to do, and I'm just sick and tired of being here, right?
I probably mean this in the most non-suicidal way that you can mean it, but I really am just like ready to go. I'm just tired of being here.
And I understood perfectly how he felt. It is an unfortunate way for someone to feel, and I guess I am, how do I put it? I'm unique when it comes to where I am in my journey because I've always been by myself, not alone, in the way that people would understand it, but I've always been by myself. I've always been the person who was alone in the crowd, if you kind of understand. You can be in a group of people and still feel alone. I've always been that guy. I've always been the person who never really identified with anybody. I was always the odd person out. I was always the one who was off to the side while everyone else is having a conversation. I was always the quiet one. And I was always the one that most people didn't talk to, but just for some reason, didn't like. We haven't had a conversation. I don't even know you exist, but you don't like me because I'm not talking. It's kind of weird, like if you're not talking to people, it's still a problem. If you don't see people, it is still a problem. You're going about your business, minding your business, and it is still a problem. I can't forget, one night I was going to work, and this girl, I came in work, I passed through the security, went to the front desk, and was, setting up myself to get ready to get the ball rolling. And this girl was passing the front desk, and just in my perk, you're like, I'm busy booting up my computer, trying to log into the system, yada, 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 and just out of the corner of my eye, I saw someone was passing, but of course I didn't, I continued doing what I was doing because I could see that it wasn't a guest, so I didn't look up. And the person was passing, and then they stopped, and they're like, you're full of yourself. Now, mind you, I've never spoken to this girl. She looked familiar. I'm like, I've seen her. In my mind, I'm like, I've seen her somewhere. But I couldn't picture where I've seen her. But they didn't look like a stranger. But I know we've never had a conversation. And the girl say, me stuck up. Like she couldn't take it anymore, so she just stopped and she decided to give me a piece of her mind. Right? And she's like, you're stuck up and if you go on better, I'm like, what are you talking about? You never had a conversation. I don't understand. Talk to people, me say, my girl, you ever pass and call me, me no say, I or whatever. Me say, I said, when I'm going about my business, I am going about my business. So I don't focus on people. So if I pass you, I can guarantee that I didn't see you, right? And if you call to me, I'm going to answer here, me not here. I'm like, my mother raised me well. I'm not ill-mannered, right? But I'm in my own space. So I talk to who talk to me, right? But you can't have it in your mind that because I don't recall ever seeing her anywhere like in close proximity to me. But I guess maybe she saw me and just like, go look at him, he's whatever. And I'm like, don't do that. You and I've never had a conversation. This is the first time we're talking, and this is what you're saying to me. And I could understand if we had a conversation before and the experience left you feeling some type of way, but we never had a conversation, so you can't be like, that's a little bit much for you to say. Saying this to say that we're living in a time where our participation in the madness that we see happening is needed for the madness to continue. And a lot of people wrongfully believe that we need a revolution. No, we don't. What we need are parallel structures. A lot of people are waking up to the fact that this life is trash. And the people, the ones who have the wealth, who have hoarded the wealth for themselves, and who have hoarded power, because we have forgotten that we are the ones who are in charge. And we have outsourced our agency and our power to them. And they feel themselves to be in their gilded cage on top of the mountain looking down on us. And now they're trying to introduce this system of control, this surveillance state, this digital prison. And a lot of people, because they're not fully awakened, they feel the despondency, they feel the desolation, they feel the claustrophobia, but they don't understand what it is. And just as the young man was saying, I'm done with this shit. I want to leave. I'm done with this life. I want to check out. And it's not that I want to kill myself. I just don't want to be here. And I understand. But the solution is not a revolution, because a revolution means war and death, right? The solution is parallel structures. TikTok on some bullshit, make your own app. YouTube on some bullshit, make your own YouTube. The banks on some bullshit, make your own bank. That is what Václav Havel, I think he was the then president of communist Czechoslovakia. And under the communist regime, of course, propaganda is what they used to rule. And the people decided to live in truth. And they didn't rail against the system. They created their own system right alongside the communist system. And that is how they operate. And that is how they tear down the system. Because if you have a movie theater and you're selling tickets for $50,000 and nobody goes, guess what's going to happen? The theater is either going to close down or they're going to have to start to sell the tickets at reasonable prices. And it's the same thing. You refuse to participate in their money. It was the same thing I was telling people during the COVID foolishness. Just don't wear the mask. Just don't social distance. And what are they going to do? They can't lock up everybody. If everyone decides not to comply, there is nothing that they can do. And so if you're one of those persons who are, you don't understand why you feel this way, you're waking up to the truth. And it is a very scary place to be, as I said. Not for me, because I've gone through my dark night of the soul and I've come out unscathed on the other side. But what you do is to find your community, find your people, and you will be perfectly all right. Because I think that